A very good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lasham Daily Briefing for Wednesday, the 4th of June, 2025. Start off with the synoptic picture beginning yesterday lunchtime, and we can see what was giving us all that horrible frontal rain. I know that sort of stifled much of yesterday's enthusiasm, but it does appear that the youth group got a little bit in the late afternoon, early evening, which is very good. That front there was associated with this low pressure system up towards the Faroe Islands. Quite nasty looking with a lot of occlusions coming off it, as well as very strong winds. Uh, Overnight, that cold front had cleared, and we're now in this sort of slightly unstable air mass. You can see we're looking out the window that there's quite a lot of, sort of cumulus type cloud already, so it should be fairly convective today, albeit quite blustery. Into midday, again, still nothing majorly of concern, slightly slacker isobars. So it should be, on looking at this optic anyway, a fairly pleasant day. By midnight tonight, we've got an occlusion getting a little bit closer to us. And then into tomorrow, depending on what that occlusion does overnight, we could have a little bit of foul weather, sort of low cloud and rain. Into Friday, then, it's much the same. Still passing fronts. Hopefully, that front going through and leaving behind some reasonable weather for the weekend. Although, looking into Saturday at lunchtime, we've got a low pressure centered over the country with quite a lot of troughs stemming from it. But still fairly far in advance. Looking into Sunday, should be nice and clear. So hopefully Saturday is not quite as bad as it looks. We'll get a nice weekend out of it. And certainly today and Friday should be reasonable. The sat pick for today, just make sure it's current. We can see little bits of sort of upper clouds, and down in our area here we've got this lower sort of cumulus and stratocumulus. Up to the north, even sort of in South Yorkshire and Scotland, there's quite a lot of wave. That'll be associated with that nice brisk westerly wind. And in the Midlands, very little cloud to speak of. Rain radar at the moment, quite a lot of shower activity coming in from the southwest. Nothing that looks majorly problematic for us at the moment. It all appears to be passing by. There is a possibility that we'll get struck later on. The forecasters have got slightly different, beg your pardon, slightly different views on what the afternoon is going to look like. So we'll have a look at all of them and make our own conclusions. On the rain forecast, we'll run that through. We can see evidence of those showers we just saw on the radar. Sort of fizzling out really by midday. Nothing that's going to cause us a huge amount of problem. But then quite a lot more showery activity from sort of it starts about 2 o'clock. From 2 o'clock onwards, running through into the early evening, clearing up sort of later on, which I'm sure Merv will be delighted to hear. Looking at the TAF, the odium TAF to begin with, we've got 23010 knots, visibility greater than 10 kilometers, with a few clouds at 2,500 feet. There's also a prob 30 between 1 and 7 local of 7,000 meter vis and light showers. Farnborough are giving us similar 2308 knots, visibility greater than 10, few at 3,000, prob 30 between 8 and 1 of 8,000 meter vis and light showers. So slightly different timings there, but certainly the beg your pardon, the odium TAF would suggest that we might get some of those showers that we saw on the prediction from about 2 o'clock. Spot winds to the south of us on the 50-degree line, we've got 230 and 240, 15 and 20 knots at 1,000 and 2,000 feet respectively. And just to the north of us, we've got 240, 20 knots at both 1,000 and 2,000 feet. So not ridiculously strong, but a reasonable breeze. On the surface, you can see that sort of southwesterly flow across the airfield there. We'll still be operating runway 27 today. It's not strong enough to necessitate a switch to 23. So we'll have a slight crosswind from the left, but it's nothing we can't handle. Local Met Office forecasts showing westerly becoming slightly more southwesterly into the afternoon. Interestingly, Met Office saying we've got lower cloud until about 2 o'clock, and then it lifts, and then we have clear air after that, which is contrary to what their own rainfall prediction suggested. Certainly looking outside, it doesn't look like we've got especially low cloud, a lower base, but plenty of blue gaps. So we'll see what happens there. It'd be interesting to see which one is correct. Temperature-wise, maximum of 16 today, feeling that a little bit cooler at 13 with that wind chill factor. Wind mean of 10 knots, gusting up to 24, and reasonable visibility all throughout the day. Sort of moderate to low humidity of about 50% by lunchtime, a little bit higher this morning, and UV maxing at 5 today. The GFS giving us similar 15, 16 degrees in terms of temperature, but dew point of 7. And looking west on the Lasham webcam here, we can see the westerly flow on the windsock. This is the south side looking towards 2XL. We've got this lower sort of cumulus cloud, probably still around 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet at the moment, maybe slightly lower, but nothing that's going to get in the way of operating this morning. Temperature-wise at Lasham, we've already we're now at 13.3 on the temperature and a dew point of 8.7. We'll just have a look and see what the predicted cloud base is. So we've got about 1,800 feet at the moment based on that temperature and dew point difference, and it does look about that. So again, no issues for us in terms of today. Onto SkySight now. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a piece of the potential flight distance, and there's not a huge amount to write home about really. To the west and north of us, it's quite poor, sort of sub-100 kilometers. Maybe a little bit down towards the south coast, a bit of a convergence down there today with this fairly strong wind. So that's really the only place people would potentially be going today, I would imagine. On the local side of things, the point forecast, we can see here SkySat predicting reasonable weather, actually quite soarable from quite early on, which actually does look quite reasonable outside, until about 12:30 when we get lower cloud and rain for the remainder of the afternoon and evening. And that soaring potential drops off to 0 at about 1 o'clock. So that's, again, slightly more pessimistic than some of the others that we've seen, and almost the reverse of what the Met Office local forecast was saying. But certainly during the soarable period of the day, we're expecting climbs up to sort of 4.5, maybe even 5,000 feet, depending on how quickly this cloud base moves up. With winds thermal top being westerly about 25 knots. Surface pressure fairly sort of moderately low today, about 1026, and it's going to be maintaining that throughout the day. Beg your pardon, 1006, and that will be dropping slightly lower, but to sort of 1004 for tomorrow as that low gets closer to us. Cloud distribution then on top meteor might give us a little bit more of an insight into what's going on here. Starting off at 9 o'clock local, and we can see this cumulus here that's evident outside the window. We run this through hour by hour. See, it actually looks really, really good by sort of 10, 11 o'clock. Then maybe starts to get a little bit of auto Q to it, maybe a little bit of overdevelopment. But we're now at 2 o'clock local, and there's not really any sign of super low cloud, as might have been suggested. But you can see the thicker auto Q beginning to work its way in from the southwest, and that's with us by about 4, 5 o'clock this evening. For the evening group, it sort of begins to sort of thin out, and you get a thinner layer of auto Q, and should remain flyable until we get some lower cloud and maybe some fog by about 10 o'clock. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of the rain this afternoon. We certainly some of the forecasters would have you believe that we're going to get a morning and then we're going to be shut off from about 1 or 2 o'clock. Others would suggest we're going to get a full flying day with no issues. So we shall just wait and see. No terms. So there's on this chart, nothing particularly interesting. 22, you've got Bath and Stacey. At 23, there's Thursley. That'll be Flares later on this evening. And at 26, you've got Delta 132 Ash Ranges. What's not on this chart, however, is an item for an area of intense aerial activity at Odium. It's part of the Odium 100 celebrations. They've got some aerial photography taking place. So there is an area that does include Lasham. It's not restricted airspace at all. We're going to have a look at the diagram very shortly and we'll discuss times as part of the airfield briefing. Before that, we'll start with the Odium cross section. They're not showing any of the sort of nasty stuff really that SkySat was suggesting, other than sort of Prop 30 for light showers later on into the afternoon. But Q scattered and broken from about 3,000 feet all throughout the day into the evening. No warnings with winds westerly, sort of 12 gusting, maximum 22, and an outside air temperature of about 16. Glider bookings, we've got a K21 for the booked course flying. There's a K21 on booked instruction, and we have a K21 on the casual list and for club members. There's also two K13s allocated for a solo to bronze course, and we have limited single-seater availability in the morning. There are four on the casual list at the moment, and there's one instructor, so if there's anybody else wanting to help out, you would be most welcome. And as always, the simulator is available as normal, and we have no movements to report. So the Odium 100 fly-in, it's slightly difficult to see. There is we'll put a copy up in the launch point vehicle, and there is one on the board in the flying office. But Lasham potentially being here, part of this area of intense aerial activity. I think there's only going to be maximum 2 or 3 aircraft at once flying it, and they're going to be doing some aerial photography today and tomorrow. Today's hours are from 9 o'clock local until 9:30 p.m. local. So that's 9 o'clock local to 9:30 p.m. local. And that will be active. It is Class G. It's not a restricted piece of airspace, but you would be wise to stay active, and it's good for maintaining good relations with Odium as well. So in summary, we've got a clear morning with cloud lifting, brisk westerly throughout with possible rain in the afternoon. We'll be operating runway 27 with cables on the south. Please make sure you're ready when the cable attack arrives. As always, do not land or taxi across the disused runways shown here in red. And here is our airfield setup with the winch line just to the south, air from the heart north. Any appetite for a grid, which I think is unlikely, would be on the north as normal. And that's all for us really today. So we'll see you out there very shortly. Let's have a good day, keep it safe, and thank you very much.